Let's give Colin Fragar another big round of applause. Thank you so much. Great job. Thank you. All right, we're now going to move on to our next presentation, which is from a business owner that lives here in Dumageddon, and that is Rodney Allen. Rodney Allen runs Global Officeworks, and he presented for us last year at our event. And what's really special about Rodney is obviously he's from Australia, so he understands the Australian culture very, very well, but he's also lived here in Dumageddon for over a decade, so quite a long time, and of course really understands the Filipino culture as well. So he's going to be talking to us about how we can better understand each other and some of our differences and similarities so we can work together better and achieve greater success. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a huge round of applause to Rodney Allen.
Just the white one? Thank you. My God, when I agreed to do this, I didn't know that I was going to be following Colin. What a great presentation. So we're going to, this little presentation today applies to both the foreigners and the Filipinos, that we can learn from each other and learn how to adapt to each other's cultures. So as Dale mentioned, I've lived in Philippines now for over 12 years. And I was born in Sydney, and back in 1984, I did what Australians typically do when they finish school, is we put on a backpack and go travel around the world, and I haven't come home yet. So I've still been out there doing that. And after 25 years in Colorado, where I opened and ran a luxury real estate company, in 2010, I moved to the Philippines. It's a long story, I won't go into it, but I moved in. And you know, when I came to the Philippines, I chose the Philippines for many, many reasons. Of course, the first is I met my wife, but I thought, well, it's going to be the same. They're English speaking, it's had some Western influence, the culture's going to be the same, so it'll be easy. Don't fall in that trap. It is so different. It's two different planets. So I'm going to try to touch on a few of our differences and how we can adapt to each other by doing that. So since I've been here, my three kids are all born and raised here. So I've had the experience of I opened our virtual assistant company about 11 years ago. And it's a fully managed and supported office-based boutique company. We're small, and we kind of base on love and supporting each other. And so what I've learned from working with my staff there, as well as my kids and the schooling and how they're educated and how the education system learn and it runs and what makes Filipinos think and why they think and what makes them tick from the education system. You know, I've got a lot of that through my kids. So we're going to really try and touch on a few things about communication and how culture applies in that. So the reason why everybody's here is the number one thing you can do is to get to know your VAs on a personal level. I really think the more, in the next few days, try to work as little as you can and try to do silly stuff together. Karaoke, visit islands, travel around, visit with families, really get to know each other on a personal level. Show interest in each other's families together. The Australian New Zealanders, show interest in your Filipino families. Share knowledge about your business and your business values and your personal values and how you deal with your clients and what your work philosophy is. Just sharing on a personal level. It will pay off in your relationships, you know, a thousand times. So a few cultural differences in communication styles. Filipinos avoid confrontation. Almost at all costs, they will avoid confrontation. And us Westerners, we foreigners, we just want to get it over with and get it resolved, and so it's very, very different. But Filipinos handle things more indirectly. They'll go around and around and around and around and around and around, right, to get to the end. And we just go directly like a bull at a gate, right? So just know that. You know, Filipinos really value politeness in the way they communicate, and we really don't think much about politeness. Like, why didn't you get the job done? We'll ask you directly. So you've got to be aware of that, and that can result in some miscommunications, and you don't want to create any embarrassment or shame. With your Filipino stuff, you need to always find a way to allow them to save face, and it's a real Asian cultural thing, and it's very big. So don't embarrass your team. So one way to do that is one of the big questions, this might be the biggest tip I'll give you today as a communication tip, is you all ask your staff, did you understand? And I'm sure the answer from everybody to that question is always yes. Right? Right? Because it's shameful to say, no, I didn't understand. Now, the reason that you didn't understand is more than likely because we didn't deliver properly, right? So a better way to put the shame on the person asking the question, instead, don't ask, did you understand? Ask, did I explain everything well enough? And because if they didn't understand, most likely that's why they didn't understand, because I didn't explain well enough. But it puts the shame on the person, on me, rather than on them. And then they will tell you that, no, sir, you didn't explain that very well. Try it again. All right? Right. So that's a big one that's really gonna help. You know, be really clear and concise. I'll tell you a story. A few years ago, one of the things that goes on here, it's like Australia 50 years ago. Everybody burns. They burn their trash. They burn their leaves. And our neighbour was raking up and he burned his leaves and it was green and wet and the smoke was pouring in our house. So I went over and I asked him, we're friends, we're neighbours, we get along. And I said, you know, the smoke's just pouring in your house. So, would you mind if you put the fire out and dug a big hole in, I live on the beach, dig a big hole and put the leaves in the hole? And he's like, oh, okay, sure. So he goes and gets his shovel and he digs a big hole in the sand, and then he moves all the leaves and puts them back in the hole, and things are going good. And then he lights the fire again. I didn't say bury the leaves. I just said put the leaves in the hole. So he put the leaves in the hole and burnt them. I was not clear and concise, right? So make everything clear and concise. So really provide those clear expectations of your VA, so they know what's expected of them. And it's really good I recommend, of course, using a project management system, Teamwork or Asana or something like that. But then in your 5-minute morning huddle or at some point, ask them to verbally share with you what they're doing and what is the project that you've assigned them, and you think they understand it and they think they understand it, and you're on two different planets, right? So ask them to read it, tell you back to you, just the way a waitress will repeat your order back to you to make it clear. That's a really good strategy. Don't think they're mind readers, right? Everything in your business is in your head. Get it on a mind map and make it very clear so your staff can understand that. Here's a big one. Provide regular feedback, communicate, and provide the tools they need to help them succeed. Give them as much support. Don't just think, oh, I'm just going to assign this task and why isn't it done yet? Give them some support. So the Filipino culture it's a blend. 500 years ago when the Spanish arrived, it was just a bunch of native people in little villages around the islands. And then the Spanish came and inserted the Spanish and the Catholic Church influence in the Philippines. So we had a lot of Western influence. Then the Americans came in 1898 for the next 50 years. So it became very, very Americanized. And that's when we think, oh, it's a very Western culture. But it isn't. They've really retained a lot of that Filipino culture. So if you can understand it and adapt to it, your business and your relationships will really flourish. There is a tendency to say, I'm the boss, I'm the foreigner, do it my way, adapt to my culture, because I'm paying you. And try not to do that. The more that us foreigners can adapt to and understand their culture, it'll really facilitate the collaboration, and your business will really flourish, and your relationships with your team will be much better. There's a few social customs. I'm sure you're all aware of the big one, because they wouldn't have let you come into the country without bringing pasalubong, right? So pasalubong is a big one. It's gift giving is a really big thing in the Philippines. There's other Filipinos are very shy, and Paul asked me earlier. He said, I wanted to take my VA and their whole family out to dinner, and they said no. And he asked me, why is that? Why would you not want to bring your family to your boss, meet your boss and have a dinner at a nice restaurant or anything like that? And I thought about that, and I talked with my staff. Again, Filipinos are very shy, and there was probably a hesitancy for them to accept your hospitality. So a better way to handle that would be provide the budget, provide the money, but then say, I would like to come to your house. I would like to come to your staff's house. That gives them an opportunity to be hospitable to you rather than accept your hospitality. Am I right, guys? You'd rather show your hospitality, lay out the red carpet, clean up the house, buy the lechon. Right? So try that one. So I'm sensing there's going to be some home visits coming up here soon. So, all right. Here's a really big difference between our two cultures. Very, very different. Collectivism versus individualism, whatever you say that. And I believe it's why working in an office environment is far, far superior to having home-based employees, because we're so very different. Filipinos tend to prioritize teamwork and group harmony over their individual achievement. It's about what we can do together versus what I did by myself. And foreigners, we're typically different. Like if we have a project that we really want to get done, put me in a room by myself and don't interrupt me. I mean, we do it in Business Blueprint. We do this Finish It Friday. It's like turn off your Facebook, turn off your interruptions, and go and do this project by yourself. That's how we do it. Whereas Filipinos would rather get in a room with their team and really work on things together and support each other. And it goes back in history to just living in a remote island and everybody relying on the barangay. And today it's the same in the family unit. Our foreigners, our families, I love my brother and I saw him here for the first time in a year and a half, and you guys have 7 brothers and sisters living in your house together every day. It's very, very different. Here's a big one. Respect for authority. How we deal with sir and ma'am. And if we have time at the end for some questions and comments, I'd love to hear how you guys deal with it. I think it's a big part of the Philippine culture to use the sir and ma'am, and as foreigners, we should just accept it. It's really hard to change. The foreigners in the room have probably already, tried this. You talk to your staff, you're like, I'm really uncomfortable. Please don't call me sir. I don't like to be sir. Just call me Rodney. Is that okay if you don't call me sir? And what's the answer? Okay, sir. And it's, you know, it's an age and authority issue. You know, we're older, we're the boss, and you're going to get sir or ma'am. It's just how it is, and it's from eternity. So here's a big one. People often ask me after, you know, over 12 years of living in the Philippines, what do I like best about Filipino culture? And I think about it and I say, I really think your family values and commitments and obligations of your family is the best part of your culture. And then they'll say, well, what do you think is the worst part of Filipino culture? And I'll say, your family values, commitments. So how that affects us in business is we tend to hire the rock stars, and our VAs, by the way, I hate calling you guys virtual. Dale and Cody, you're achieving great things. Can you just get rid of that word virtual in the world? And we're just rock stars, assistants, you know, I couldn't run without you business. But anyway, so where was I in the so the family, we hire the rock star. And because that person, and it's often the eldest sister culturally, but it could be there's 5, 6, 7, 8 children in the family, but we're hiring the person that does it all. So typically when there's a family crisis, you know, Lola's in hospital, Grandma's in hospital, or there's something going on, it's our staff member that has to deal with that in the family, right? You guys all get obligation from your family to go deal with that, where maybe your younger sister or brother is just sitting at home doing nothing, and it's like, why me? And it's because you're the talented one in the family, which is why I hire you. Now, business owners, we can't compete with that. That's a cultural obligation that when they get called to sit by Grandma's side in the hospital, they have to go. And you're thinking, why? There's 7 other people to take care of Grandma. Why can't she work and earn the money? Right? Because Grandma says, where's Mary Jo? She needs to be here at the hospital. So the family obligations are very big. I have a friend that calls them the barnacles. If you have a boat and all the barnacles stick to the boat, so your staff, the Filipino staff, there's the boat, and once the boat starts earning some decent money, then the barnacles start to attach. And so the bottom line is when it's a family obligation, even though us foreigners may think, what's the big deal? It's a big deal. So we just have to deal with it. So what motivates your staff? Besides money, and of course money is a big motivation, but there are other things. But I will talk a little bit about money. And Filipinos live in the now. It's right now, which is what makes them so happy, and what makes us so unhappy is because you've heard that expression, if you're depressed, it's because you're thinking about the past too much, and if you suffer anxiety, it's because you're thinking about the future. Filipinos just think about right now. And so when it comes to bonuses and additional funds and everything, if you're giving some money out, it's very likely, right, you're going to spend it or save it. What are you going to do? Spend it? Because there's some kind of emergency in their family that they needed the new roof from the storm, or there's always something. We have a program in our company which is it's designed for retention and rewarding, and it's a 5-year vesting. Every 5 years you get a lot of money. It depends on performance. It could be up to like $10,000 every 5 years, which is like the largest amount they'll ever see in one lump sum. Personally, I would love to just put that in a pension fund and you get that when you're 65. But for my staff, that's not a reward to them because that's like some money for like 40 years' time and it doesn't mean anything, right? And so that's not a reward, and then it wouldn't serve the retention because they're like, I don't really care about that. It's not here. So unfortunately, they get the money and they're going to spend it. So just be aware that they will spend it, but it's really goes back to they'll spend it typically on their families to support their obligations. So other motivations, acknowledge, celebrate their successes, celebrate in a way of fame and shame. Again, I think a big part of Filipino culture is fame and shame. So if you're celebrating something they did that's great, share it with the whole team, share it with their family, let everybody know, acknowledge them in public. But if it's something that needs work or you're admonishing or something, please do that very privately so nobody gets embarrassed. There's something called utang na loob, and right, it's a very good thing to be aware of. I think it means something like debt of gratitude. Would that sum it up, right? And what it is when you give something that they're not expecting, then such as some cash or a restaurant or something, then they'll owe you. They'll owe you one, basically. And it doesn't have to be repaid back in cash, but it might be repaid in working extra hard, working back, finishing that, or just additional loyalty. So it's really good to give some unexpected bonuses to your staff. And when they get those bonuses, as I said, they're a very inclusive culture. So don't just provide it for your one team member. Let them share it with their friends or their family or their workmates. I often know when one of our clients has given a direct bonus to their team members, I walk in the office and here's their team member sharing pizza with 30 or 40 people. And I'm like blowing the whole bonus on sharing their work with their workmates, right? That's just the culture. So, wrapping up, I'd love to hear if any of you, either right now or you can come and talk to me later if you have any other issues or questions about anything cultural, as well as since I've lived in this area for so long, if you want any tips on what to do in the next few days, happy to do that. But just think about, do you prefer foreigners us adapting to their culture, or you prefer they adapt to yours? One of the slides I skipped over in communication was don't use slang. But we might be able to do that based on this morning's little exercise. And have a think about, how you're going to think about using sir and ma'am. Do you fight it or do you just accept it? So, thanks, everybody.